Australia's economy, from boom to slowdown. What happened? Australia's economy was an unstoppable force for decades. From the 1990s onwards, it was a story of consistent growth. But now, things have taken a turn. Why did Australia, once known for its record-breaking economic streak, slow down? Stay tuned to find out the reasons behind this shift. Let's dive deeper into Australia's boom years, specifically from 1991 to 2020, to understand why this period was so remarkable. The boom years, 1991 to 2020. Deep dive. Imagine this. Australia managed to avoid a recession for nearly 30 years, from 1991 to 2020. After the global economic troubles of the 1980s, Australia's government introduced a series of economic reforms. These included opening up the economy to trade, floating the Australian dollar, and cutting tariffs. One of the biggest drivers of Australia's economic success was its mining sector. In the 2000s, global demand for commodities skyrocketed, especially from China, which was going through its own industrial revolution. Australia's rich deposits of iron ore, coal, and other natural resources were in high demand. This mining boom generated enormous wealth for Australia. Australia shipped 736 million tons, more than 80% of iron ore exports, to China in 2022. Iron ore, a key component in steelmaking, became Australia's single most important export product. Australia also experienced a population boom, driven in part by immigration. This, combined with rising incomes, fueled the housing market. More people meant a higher demand for homes, leading to a surge in housing construction. Cities like Sydney and Melbourne saw rapid urban expansion, with housing prices increasing dramatically. Between 1990 and 2020, housing prices in Australia grew by 412%, or $459,900, making the property market one of the hottest in the world. The wealth generated by the property boom supported further economic growth, as homeowners had more equity and were willing to spend. Another important sector was services, particularly education and tourism. Australia became one of the most popular destinations for international students, especially from Asia. Education services became one of the country's top exports, generating $40 billion annually before the pandemic. Tourism also played a big role, with visitors flocking to see Australia's natural beauty. Tourism contributed around $58 billion in 2023 to the economy. During this boom, Australia invested heavily in infrastructure. Massive projects like roads, ports, and public transportation systems were built to support its growing population and economy. This infrastructure made it easier for businesses to grow and contributed to long-term productivity. What fueled Australia's boom? Australia's rise was fueled by several factors. The biggest one, China's rapid growth. China's demand for natural resources, especially coal and iron ore, skyrocketed during its industrialization period. Australia, rich in these resources, became China's top supplier. As a result, the mining sector became a major driver of Australia's economy. And that wasn't all. Australia's housing market took off during this time. People took out more loans to buy homes, which pushed prices up. Imagine the effect of all that spending: more jobs, more construction, and more economic activity. But the good times couldn't last forever. Let's talk about why the slowdown began. Here's where things started to change. As China's growth slowed down in the late 2000s and 10s, so did the demand for Australian resources. And when one of your biggest customers cuts back on buying, you feel it. Iron ore prices dropped, and the mining boom lost steam. The price of iron ore began 2015 at $71.26 per dry metric tons, but fell 39% by the end of the year. But that wasn't the only issue. Australia's household debt kept rising during the boom years. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, in 2022, average household debt grows by 7.3%. With wages stagnating and debt piling up, people had less money to spend. Less spending means slower growth, but external factors also played a major role. Let's dive into that next. Impact of global events. Australia's economy may have been strong, but it wasn't immune to global events. One of the biggest hits came in 2020 with the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic shut down borders, crushed the tourism industry, and led to widespread job losses. In 2020 alone, the Australian gross domestic product, GDP, shrank 7%, the first contraction since the early 1990s. Australia also saw its unemployment rate jump to 7.4% in mid-2020, the highest level in over 20 years. The government tried to soften the blow with stimulus packages like JobKeeper and JobSeeker, pumping billions of dollars into the economy. But even with this support, Australia's economic momentum slowed significantly. Let's find out what the future holds. Is Australia's growth story over? So, what's next for Australia's economy? Well, as you see, the days of easy growth are behind us. The mining boom isn't what it used to be, and the housing market is cooling down. But there are still opportunities on the horizon. One of them is renewable energy. Australia is rich in natural resources like sunlight and wind, making it a perfect candidate for a green energy revolution. Australia is currently the world's largest producer of lithium, a key material for batteries in electric vehicles, and it's investing heavily in solar and wind projects. There's also hope that Australia's tech and education sectors will become new engines of growth. The road ahead. Looking ahead, Australia's future depends on how well it adapts to a changing world. Climate policies will play a big role, as will new trade partnerships and investments in technology. The transition from a mining-based economy to a more diversified one will be crucial. Imagine Australia becoming a hub for clean energy and tech innovation. It's possible, but it won't be easy. The government will need to focus on long-term strategies, not just short-term fixes. So, what does this mean for everyday Australians? Australia's economy went from boom to slowdown, but it's not the end of the story. We've seen how global forces, local challenges, and the end of the mining boom all played a part in this shift. Will Australia rise to the challenge? Only time will tell. If you found this video insightful, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching Economy Land, and see you next time for more insights on the global economy.